Hey, welcome
Okay.
everybody. Glad to have y'all here tonight. Um, Tonight we have Juan Uribe giving a talk about sound design in the AAA space. So we've got a really good talk prep for you. I just want to remind you guys really quick that next week we will be having two workshops in collaboration with the UTD Sound Club. Workshop one will be on Tuesday, October 20th on the Sound Club Discord. And then workshop two will be on the next night, October 21st, on the SGDA Discord. And so workshop one will be on like sound asset creation, and then workshop two will be on implementing those sounds into Unity. So if that interests you, please be sure to check that out. And then next, I wanted to remind everybody really quick that the Hack UTD Game Jam is coming up pretty soon. I believe registration just closed for that. But if you made it in before the deadline, we're really looking forward to that. That's going to start on October 25th. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. That pretty much covers all the announcements that we really got tonight. We can kind of just dive straight into the talk. So with that said, Juan, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Cameron. So my presentation, it's got a kind of a interesting kind of general name, sound design for AAA games, and I wasn't sure what to do, so I decided to kind of just assume I wanted to like spark a lot of interest in people that are either very interested in sound or that are kind of like considering maybe. So it's kind of like a little bit of a few things. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about my kind of my journey and like what I've done, and a little bit about what I do and my day to day working, and then I think you might get some value of just getting a bunch of like tips and ideas of how to break into the industry, how to do well in a journey to get into a AAA company, but could be applicable to really just get into game audio in general. So let's see a little bit about me. I'm currently working at Bungie as a sound designer on the sandbox systems, which means I pretty much do anything that's related to the player, which tends to be pretty much all weapons, armor, abilities, UI is kind of not really super as related to the player, but it kind of is in a way. But it's kind of very sandbox type stuff that you can. The way I like to think of it is you can kind of just jump into a empty level, pull up your gun, pull up your ability, and just kind of test it and play with it. Um, and then before Bungie, I was at Team Audio, which is an Austin-based company which is kind of an outsourcing audio company that's a full blown sound design, composition, implementation, and they hired me as a contractor, uh, kind of like as a rolling permanent contractor, freelancer contractor, whatever you want to call it, and they just constantly had me jumping from game to game. Some of the bigger games were like Smite, Realm Royale, Paladins, Rogue Company, which is a lot of high res games among like a bunch of other smaller games, which was really fun. I got to kind of touch a lot of different types of games and genres and styles. Before that, I was at Microsoft. I was working not super directly on games, but it was a HoloLens. It's augmented reality, and we were making like experiences and like interactive applications and things like that. And audio was very prominent in the way that it had to be spatialized in a certain way, a lot of UI, and then I do some UI sounds for the Windows 10 game bar. And then before that, I actually was a freelancer for quite a few years. I want to say like about three years or so. Um, so let me go in reverse and put it as like how did I make this path happen, kind of like in a summarized way. Uh, I I didn't go to school for anything um, games related, or yeah, like anything game developer related. I always wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and but I always loved sound, music, technology, so I kind of went for an audio engineering degree. Um, And while I was studying audio engineering, which I wasn't really loving, but I was still getting a lot of valuable knowledge, I discovered there was like a one little post production class, um, which I took, and it pretty much kind of like it turned something in my brain, and I just kind of sort of really discovered sound design while taking that class, and I wanted to drop everything else and get started with just sound design. So at that point, I just kind of like I graduated, and I was like, I don't ever want to like record bands or do live sound or anything like that. Like, had no interest. I want to do sound design, and I really like games, so I want to do game sound design. So that's when I kind of just started. Right away, I wanted to be in a AAA company. I started researching. I started looking around, and I was like, I want to be in a AAA company. I want to be at Blizzard. I want to be something like that. Um, and I realized that it was really, really hard. It's a saturated industry, and I'll get to that later. But I just I started applying to anything I could, but in the meantime, I just basically was kind of forced to become a freelancer. Started like just looking for any kind of job I could get, um, indie game jobs, indie games, but also I was taking like media jobs, like commercials and kind of post production type things, and just slowly trying to build my skills and my portfolio to kind of just get a stronger and stronger to the point where I made a good enough demo reel. I got a few credits, and then that's when a recruiter kind of called me up about a job at Microsoft. Went through that with a little bit of help from someone I knew, which is very important. I was able to get the job at Microsoft, which wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was a really good job. It paid well, it was secure, and it was kind of almost games, not quite. But so I did Microsoft for about a year and a half, and then my contract at Microsoft is always reshuffling and redoing things. So they didn't need the team that was doing what we were doing anymore. So my contract was ended a little early. Yeah, about a year and 8 months, and I was kind of like, okay, what do I do now? And then Team Audio. At that point, I had a strong enough portfolio and everything that I kind of landed through a friend at Team Audio, and then working on a lot of weapons, characters, abilities, and all UI and all kinds of things at Team Audio. I got enough experience, and again, through having some help uh, with someone I knew, I was able to get a freelancing job making some weapons for Destiny. They were kind of testing out if they usually outsource some other weapons when they don't have time to like a bigger named companies. They wanted to test if they could do smaller batches of weapons to out to like single freelancers instead of like big outsourcing companies. So I did a batch of weapons. They like what I did. A position opened 3 or 4 months later, and I pretty much had already basically kind of interviewed for them. I worked with them. I worked with the audio director. They had feedback for me. I interpreted the feedback. So they knew I was doing the job right. They liked my sounds. I was easy to work with. Uh, so that kind of gave me a huge edge on the interviews and the whole process. And about a year and 7 months, pretty much almost exactly, I started at Bungie. And then since then, I've just been working on Destiny 2. So yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of my journey. And we'll get to some details about like what it's like a little later. But um, I figure I have a video. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Destiny 2. Uh, we have a big expansion coming out in November, literally about 3 weeks from now. And in this video, pretty much every single weapon, armor, anything you see in this video is like the weapons and arm and gear video. Pretty much everything except one weapon I did the sound for, and it's something you'll be able to hear. So yeah, here's the video.
It's time, Guardian. Crush them. Triple down! Relax, Guardian! You're scaring them!
Okay. So I something about what I do all day, and it is awesome. I that video that just came out, like when I saw it, I had no idea like our marketing team was making that, and then when I saw it, I was like super excited. I really love what I do. It's seriously kind of cliche, but it's like one of those like if you're doing what you love, you're not working, and it's to a certain extent it's true. But yeah, there's definitely some parts of it that feel like work. But for the most part, like I feel very fortunate to do what I do, and it is like an amazing career, and it's really hard to get there, and it's really hard to do. But uh, yeah, I really love what I do. So um, what I do all day. Uh, this can definitely vary quite a bit uh, from day to day. Like every day can be different. But if I were to just like take an average of what a day might look like, and it could be just broken up throughout the week as well, I would say that 40% of the time spent designing sounds. One of the most important things, you're just sitting on the DAW. I use Reaper, and I think I'll get to that later too. And yeah, just literally in there with a animation capture, some kind of capture, something like that, and just I sometimes just creating swords, kind of just creating like source material to kind of work on something else, or sometimes you're literally just working directly on a sound. But yeah, designing sounds is what is basically the biggest part of the job. And then 20% of the time is going to be implementing those sounds, taking the sounds, uh, finding a way to make them work. Sometimes it's as simple as a kind of like a plug and play, like just fire and shoot. Sometimes it's going to be a really complex system. It's going to take a lot of finagling. We use Wise. We implement our sounds into Wise, and then we have a proprietary engine that we use. So, and then put the games in the, put the sounds into the game, get into the game, kind of test them out. Usually, when it's weapons, for example, um, something I like to do is just kind of create a sound, design a sound as fast as I can. Don't get too precious, and just put it in Wise, put it in the game, get in the game, start shooting. Immediately, it's gonna kind of start dictating like, oh, this is kind of like sounding a little weak or sounding a little harsh, or it needs more of this, needs more personality. You kind of go back into the DAW, you design, kind of like iterate and go back in. But yeah, so about 60% of the time is basically just designing the sounds, put them into the game. um, 20% of the time, another 20% of the time is going to be reviewing, collaborating, meetings. Um, it's going to be, this can include all kinds of things. Like it could be as, the boring meetings where you're just meeting to like talk about like some office stuff, but it can be like really exciting meetings where we're like get to see what the animators are working on, or it could be meetings about ideating on what we want the palette of a sound of a creature to be like. So I actually enjoy quite a bit of my meetings. It can be pretty exciting. And then some collaboration. A lot of the time we're kind of on our own doing our own thing, but like certain sounds require collaboration. Certain systems are like really big and are going to require multiple designers to tackle. Sometimes we review our own sounds. Actually, yeah, I would say most of us get our sounds reviewed. So that's another 20, and then the last 20, it's probably fixing bugs, testing. Once you get a bunch of sounds in your game, you want to like joint play tests with the studio, where you actually play through a mission, play through a strike, whatever Destiny related thing, and then you get to hear your sounds in context, which is very important and really valuable. Sometimes in when we're working in systems, we have a tendency to just want to get in a blank level, shoot our gun. Oh, it sounds pretty good, and just kind of move on. But you can't really do that because context is everything in games. You want to make sure your gun. Sometimes your gun can be sounding really, really good when you go fire it in the game with a bunch of people or in a bunch of creatures and whatnot. The gun might be getting lost. They may be just clashing. It might be too tonal. Who knows? And then there's also, of course, going to be bugs, all kinds of things. So some of the things we do with the team. Sometimes we do fun field recording trips. You might have seen maybe some YouTube videos out there. Sometimes we might go on a big trip to Arizona to shoot guns with a expert, or sometimes it's smaller things. We go to we just want to go record some, I don't know, some vehicle pass-bys on the highway. It can be any kind of stuff like that. When we have time, sometimes we just go to our Foley room. We need to record something really quick. Sometimes we want to experiment. And then, yeah, designing sounds. We can design sounds from our original source material, like I was saying, like recording things like that. Sometimes we use synthesizers, although I'm always very careful of using synthesizers because they can sound a little unnatural. And I always try to use synthesizers in a way that they kind of blend and they sound realistic, like they're coming from the real world. So I never like to use exposed synthesizers. I like to always layer them so they sound like organic in a way. And then we also have libraries, which we have our own proprietary libraries, of course, like the sounds we've recorded for Bungie over a long time. And we also have commercial libraries we buy for the team to be able to lean on. And any library that we use, we always make an effort to like guarantee that we're not going to just drag and drop a sound. We use it as building blocks to kind of create something new or to support an element, things like that. And then, like I was saying, implementing middleware game engine. Uh, yeah, pretty much it's kind of like a slice of what I do all day. And this can change. There could be a week where I'm not designing at all. I might be like just bug fixing and testing. There could be a week where I'm heads down all week long designing. So this can kind of just jump around quite a bit. So here's some fun sounds. I didn't know what to do here. There's a lot I could show, but I just figured I would just pick like one thing. Uh, we're gonna hear this video on the left. It's uh, it's an electric toilet I recorded when I went to Tokyo last year, and I I have that recording of that toilet, which is really useful on its own. It's a mechanical sound. It's a servo. But I also enjoy taking my sounds and completely mangling and destroying them and just getting like something that doesn't sound like the original sound at all. So, and then I took that sound, I basically created the entire beam laser of this rifle. So yeah, let's listen to this first video of the toilet. So yeah, that was basically that serum. It's a synthesizer, and I imported that sample as a wavetable, and then I just as you could sort of see a little bit on the video, maybe like I just a ton of LFOs, a ton of modulation on all the knobs and pitching it down. There's distortion, all kinds of things. So yeah, let's listen to the second video to see like the end result in the game. So yeah, that's something that it's definitely part of the workflow. I wouldn't say like this is like the only way I work, the only way that things happen. This was actually something really interesting in that uh, we had some downtime, and I took this. I was like, okay, let's just do some experiments, and I just took the toilet recording, just wanted to experiment. I put it in Serum, created a bunch of textures, stuff like that. Months later, had no idea. They said, "Oh, we're making a beam weapon," and I was like, "Okay, let me see what it looks like." And I started seeing, and it was like, it's a void. If anyone plays Destiny, it's void, which has a certain sound to it. Like it's a palette of sound we've used before, and it's purple, and it's got like a little bit of like a vibe and a style to it. So I was like, maybe I can leverage the sound. So I took the sound, and it was almost there, but I obviously had to tweak it and add a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, it ended up being like it cut my work in half, or more than that, really, because I find that just a part of my work is really just always experimenting, always creating sounds and adding them to my library. So one day I can just kind of go back and be like, oh, this could be useful. It doesn't mean that's the only way. Like I had to create like 5 weapons in this release, and the other weapons I didn't really have like something like that. So I actually had to kind of like go in and like create something from scratch. And but yeah, it's kind of like a cool example of like uh, just having like a passion for sound and always being like curious and experimenting and doing things can be like it's kind of part of the job that will end up benefiting you and helping you in the future. Um, oh, so yeah, let's move into how do I break into the industry? Like a few major points that I've learned and I've been told as well is that it is a marathon and it's not a sprint. And there are some people that, they get that miraculous internship at Sony, and then they get hired up from there, and they just like that happens, but they are very, very rare and competitive. And you might find that it's a lot of people want to get into it, and there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of audio schools. There's a lot of universities, and there's probably more candidates than there are jobs, especially if you want to break into a full-time job. So uh, if you really want to get into it, you have to understand that it's possible that it's not going to happen super fast, and you just have to kind of uh, heads down, work really hard, and work on your portfolio, and just know that it might go on for a long while. For me, I wanted to break in really fast, and I literally had to freelance for about 2.5, 3 years before I had my kind of like first in-house break. Yeah, it's extremely saturating, but it is really rewarding. Um, I it was really hard for me when I was trying to get in, but once I did it, where I am right now, I it's like the best time I've had in my life. I don't imagine myself doing anything else. It's really amazing. It's really fun. The people that I work with are really great, and like the audience that I make sounds for, they always love this kind of sound type stuff. So yeah, it's really good. And I just noticed like it's getting dark here, and I don't really have a light, so hopefully it's not getting too dark up for the webcam. But there's nothing I can do. Um, but yeah, it's also an industry that is very cost prohibitive. Um, it really, out of like all the game dev disciplines, it's probably the most cost prohibitive because most other disciplines you might need like a solid computer, and like maybe like some of the artist disciplines they might need uh, some expensive programs and like maybe some equipment. But like with audio, it really just never ends. You need an interface, you need headphones, you need speakers, you need DAW plugins, you need microphones, you need recorders, batteries, mic stands, cables, dongles, and it just things are evolving, and then the sound libraries. It's really, really hard to keep up, and it can be really, really overwhelming. But even though that is true, there's is also a time today where there's also quite a lot of free and cheap resources that we didn't used to have 20 years ago. So uh, there's a lot of free sounds, free sound libraries. There's a lot of free plugins, and I will get into that later. Uh, Getting a Reaper, for example, is a DAW that you can use for free until you're ready to pay for it. There, you can download Unity, you can download Unreal, and there's a lot of sound projects you can get into. Uh, that's not to say that any of that makes it less hard, but it's at least something you can pursue to help yourself. Um, but yeah, I would say that people that have like a lot more privilege and a lot of money are always going to have a little bit of an easier job. Uh, that's for sure. And it's something that's really hard to navigate. But yeah, anyone that is into audio at all knows how hard it can be. A few other external factors, location can be really prohibitive and important. I personally moved from Dallas, where I went to school, and I wasn't really like finding any leads. There's only like two or three big companies, I think, and then a few medium and small ones. And so I decided to move to Seattle. I was able to do that, and it paid off for me. I started making connections. Connections are something that is really important and is very tied to location, although you can make connections online as well. And I would say that moving to a big game hub can be quite beneficial. It's not a necessity, but it's very beneficial. And it's also one of those things that is really hard to navigate. Sometimes you don't want to, you like where you live. Sometimes you don't want to leave your family. Although these days, remote is becoming more and more common. So who knows? Um, and then the paradox of acquiring experience. Some of you might be aware of how this works, and it applies to a lot of industries, but a lot of postings you might see for junior and associate sound designers, they will require mostly they require like X amount of years or X amount of titles shipped or something like that, and it can be really frustrating because you want to get the junior position, but how can you get it if you don't have what it would take if you already had the junior position? So something I will say about that is building your portfolio and your experience through indie freelancing games media whatnot can count for that quite a bit. And I would recommend always ignoring anything that says, if you're starting out and if you want to get a junior associate assistant position, anything that says junior associate intern assistant, anything like that, if it has X amount of years of experience or X amount of titles shipped, just ignore it. Like, don't treat it as a necessity. I think companies are getting better about being so demanding in their, at least in their job postings. And um, I think all of the positions that I ever applied for and I got into, I defied like the odds. Like, I basically ignored what the position was saying. And as long as you show that you're really good, you have a really strong demo reel, as long as you can get noticed, you will push through. And usually that's kind of more of a kind of like a way of kind of like zoning out people that are not really serious. But yeah, my recommendation is don't follow that to the letter. Just don't apply to a senior position if you're a junior. But if it's a junior or maybe a mid-level, just yeah, don't treat it as the word of law. Uh, and then another factor is luck. It's a really hard one. There's a lot of really hard external factors, and luck can be pretty much everything. Like it could be as simple as, I don't know, um, your resume just got thrown out by HR for for X reason, or it could be the other way around. Like maybe you got picked up because he was shiny, or who knows. Who knows what amount of luck, or sometimes you could be the perfect candidate, but they just happen to have an internal candidate contractor they were hiring, so you just didn't make the cut. And you might think like, oh, what happened? I thought I was like doing really well. Well, you never had a chance because they were going to hire the internal contractor. So luck is something you can't control, and the best you can do is, be your best and just keep trying and hope that luck's on your side. And don't be a jerk. The audio community is a really tight knit, warm, welcoming community, and especially audio teams in each company. Uh, they are just some of the best people out of all the, like, everyone's always impressed about how tight knit the audio teams and the audio community is. and everyone's like really helpful. Everyone's always trying to help each other, push each other up. Um, so yeah, you will never get anywhere in the audio industry if you're any kind of a jerk. People will notice, and they will blacklist you silently. So um, that's not to say you have to be like, like the happiest, nicest person in the world. Just don't be an asshole, and you should be fine. Uh, yeah. So for breaking in, I think my number one thing for me is the demo reel is king. Also, don't be a jerk. But let's assume you're not a jerk. It doesn't matter that you don't have experience. It might, you might not have like this or that. But like if your demo reel blows an audio director away, like it just completely impresses them, like beyond anything else, you will get noticed and you will get like fast tracked into the interview process. So the number one most important thing you should be working on is making sure your demo reel is absolutely amazing. And it can take a while to get it there, but just constantly be working on it. And uh, I have a story. There was this sound designer, and I wish I remembered him, but he had this demo reel on Vimeo, and by luck, by pure luck, it just made its way through social media. And like a team in California, I think one of the people that make Call of Duty, they saw the demo reel. They literally reached out to this person. It was so good. It was so impressive. Like this guy was making amazing sounds. They contacted him and they hired him and went on to work on Call of Duty. That's an extremely rare case. Like I've never heard of that happening other than the one time. That's how luck plays into it. But like that shows how much you can get done with a really strong demo reel. So some tenets that I go by in terms of the demo reel that I like to see when we're interviewing candidates and seeing candidates. 1 to 2 minutes. I think 1 minute is a pretty solid like sizzle reel. You want to make like a landing page sizzle reel that it can be either like a really impressive single piece or like multiple pieces cross-faded together, but like keep it between 1 minutes. Don't go over 2 minutes. If you want to go longer, that's fine. Do not go over 2 minutes. That is way too long. Uh, we probably had like 600 applicants for our last position, and our audio director is really good about reviewing and like as many as he can, but you never want to waste that audio director's or anyone's time, and they really have no time. So it better be it better be good, and it better not be like way too long because people are going to start glazing over. Even if it's kind of good, it's just you don't want to watch a 5 minute. uh, Aim to catch the ear in the first 10 seconds. So it doesn't have to be like a big explosion or anything like that. Just make sure you don't start with like uh, something like really uninteresting, really boring. You definitely want to aim to have like even if it's ambient, something that's kind of like interesting from a story perspective, or it could be an explosion. It doesn't matter, but like hook them in the first 10 seconds so they keep watching, and then yeah, like they will probably watch the rest. And I know some people that if they just get bored in the first 10 seconds and nothing's happening and it's kind of sounding bad, they're like, okay, I got 500 applicants. I'm just going to go to the next. Pick materials based on what you want to work on. So if you want to work on a sci-fi shooter, if you want to work on a sports game, on a cars game, like try to tailor your demo reel to kind of like that direction. Don't like make a demo reel for like shooters, and if your passion is to work on a racing car game, uh, things like that. Or if you don't really have like a hyper preference, you can kind of go broad and just kind of pick like a AAA vibe. You can kind of switch it up, like combat and then some creatures and whatnot. But like kind of just aim in the general direction of where you want to end up working at. Um, linear captures versus in-engine captures. So I would say linear captures, whether it's gameplay captures or trailers or something, are really valuable. But there's definitely some value if you are able to kind of make your own game or get a demo game, put your own sounds, implement them, and then get a capture of the game running, like you're running around shooting, what have you, with your own sounds and talk and kind of just say that you implemented them. That could be a really strong reel. And then if you ever want to talk about implementation, here's how I implemented. You can put that on later on a portfolio piece, but always want to have like a sizzle reel that captures people. Um, get feedback from people in the industry. Just always be improving, iterating. Use reference. Make sure that you are trying to hit a bar that's high quality. Don't ignore like even if it's the video you're using. Like always try to like have a reference. Kind of like when people do music, they always have a reference of like how they want their drums to hit, like really snappy or whatnot. Just make sure you have a reference so you know what kind of quality bar you want to hit, and do not put music in your reel unless it's coming from inside the world. It's diegetic. Uh, if you want to be a composer, be applied to be a composer. Like there's never a AAA position that wants to hire a sound designer slash composer. It's always going to be we want to hire a composer, we want to hire a sound designer. So unless the music is like supporting your story, it's coming from a TV or some or radio or something, do not put a score or anything like that. And I recommend checking out this channel, Twitch TV, Power Up Audio. They review reels, I think, every week. Um, I put my reel through that gauntlet years ago, and it helped me a lot. So you can go through their backlog of VODs and just look at what like all kinds of demo reels being reviewed. They review their reel, their webpage, everything. You can learn quite a lot. So hopefully you can see this, or if not, I can put it in chat or something later. Um, implementation. So learning implementation, very important because designing sounds is not the only thing that matters. You would be working in movies. So definitely you want to make sure, in my opinion, just pick one middleware to learn. Doesn't hurt to learn more, but if you can get really strong, pick either Wise or Fmod. There's a few others, but in my opinion, Wise or Fmod are like the strongest ones. AAA, probably Wise. Indie, probably Fmod. Learn it really well, make a demo, showing how you can use it, or work on a game jam or something like that. Unreal versus Unity is kind of the same. Unreal is a little more AAA. Unity is a little more on the indie side. Both are used in indie and AAA. There's a few other engines, but those are like the ones that kind of catch the ear. Having that in your portfolio in some manner is very important. Having an implementation reel, again, have the sizzle reel, but then having some kind of implementation showcase in your portfolio a little later, uh, just showing your audio director that might be hiring you that, hey, I can make sounds, but I can also put the sounds in the game very effectively. And hey, I happen to know how to create systems to make this, car engine work or something like that. Something that tells the audio director like, hey, we could hire this person no matter how junior they are, and we could be literally handing them sounds on day one. Well, maybe not day one, but you know what I'm saying. And they could be like effective right away. So make yourself strong on the implementation front. Game jams are. I never did a game jam, but I got lucky. I did a bunch of other stuff. But if you can't find work, if you can't find like an indie game to work on or whatnot, game jams are definitely a good thing to do because you get to learn how to make sounds, put sounds in the game, work with another team, and then you have a final product you can show. So I don't know a lot about where to find them or like whatnot, but I'm sure you can find that by you. I mean, U.S. students probably know more than I do, but yeah, something to Google, and it's definitely I've seen a lot of people take advantage of them and do really well. And then indie projects, that's another hard one because it's really hard to find to like find work in the indie space. You have to make connections, you have to be active on social media, you have to be looking, you have to get lucky, you have to like get your name out there. But like, yeah, if you can get work in any type of indie game where you can then show like, hey, I have a credit, I worked in this game, I put the sounds in, I made the sounds, here's a demo reel, that definitely goes a long way. And that can build you up to like, you know even if you have no experience in a AAA company, having a lot of experience in the indie space can like kind of be a semi substitute for it. So uh, good thing to do. Networking is another really important. Pretty much almost all of my jobs were a part of networking. Like the person that reached out to me to give me the freelance job at Bungie uh, was someone that I had met years before in a meetup here in Seattle. We kind of chit chatted. I was newer. He told me a little bit about what he was doing at Bungie. I got his email. Then I emailed him over the years. I kind of sent him my new demo reel. I asked him for feedback. He kind of saw my progress. He saw me getting stronger, like a better sound designer. One day he's like, "Hey, we need someone. I like what you've been doing." So it could literally be your ticket in, like uh, having like a strong networking presence. And this could be conferences, GDC, pretty much. Not gonna try and name a bunch of them, but like I'm sure you know, there's quite a lot of game dev conferences all over the world, in the US especially. There's meetups if you can find them in your city, and virtual networking is really strong. It's stronger than ever. There's forums. Twitter has a really strong audio community. There's a game audio Slack channel. Find at Matesk on Twitter, and he's basically the person that invites people to that Slack channel. I believe it has like 900 members, and it has multiple channels. You can ask questions. Hey, I have a problem implementing. Hey, I just released a game. Here's how it is. Or hey, how do you design a stun sound? I have no idea. Like people will help you. It's an amazing resource. And then if you follow me on my handle on Twitter, and then go to the people that I follow, you will find hundreds of people in the industry, AAA, indie, freelancers, whatever, like all kinds of people. And then follow those people, interact, start posting your stuff. Just try to be as present as possible, and that can go a long way. And then don't treat networking as like a transactional thing. Don't make it like they owe you something, or like if you give them something they'll give you something. Just the best thing I can say is just try to make friends. It doesn't have to be best friends, but just kind of like be a cool guy, be a cool person, be a cool guy or girl, um, and just kind of slowly grow relationships. It doesn't mean you're going to befriend everyone around you, but like don't aim to be just like the guy or girl that just wants to get something out of someone. I've seen some people do that, and it doesn't look good. So yeah, all you want to do is kind of become part of the community, and it will kind of come back in and help you down the road one day. So it happened to me. That's basically how I got a lot of my stuff. Um, Differentiating yourself and standing out. So there's so many people trying to get in that sometimes it's not enough just to like get a strong demo reel and like get a few credits. And like sometimes like these days you have to do a little extra, like be a little bold. I've seen some people try things with the demo reels where they play the demo reel with a little superimposed like small video on the corner, where like the demo reel is shooting a gun, and then you can see them like shooting their pellet gun. And then the demo reel is like there's some reloads happening, and you see them like kind of like manipulating some mechanical items. Like that makes it like fun and interesting, and like, oh look, they totally recorded every sound and they found a way to make it sound good in the game. Or someone that I think did a really good job of getting hired was some of you might know him, maybe not, but look up Marshall McGee on YouTube, and he made a YouTube web like some episodes of like sound design type episodes on YouTube, where they just kind of showed like how they recreated the blaster from Halo, or they just kind of did a deep dive on God of War, and they recreated the axe using only their iPhone, and like just a bunch of really cool stuff. And like his sounds are really cool and everything. But uh, I believe like that, like the people that hired him, like they kind of just saw like this person's like pure passion, creativity, and like they just thought like this person's amazing. He would be an asset to our team. So always be looking for ways. Maybe like some people do a blog. I used to do a blog where I would just write about like what I was doing creatively, my plugin chains, things like that. Like try to do a little extra than just the bare minimum, because you have to be noticed, and it's really hard to be noticed. So that's definitely something to try and do. Making a website. Uh, this is pretty self-explanatory, but like you want to have a clean website. I recommend Squarespace. It's kind of easy, cheap, looks pretty good. Make sure your landing page has your reel. Don't make people dig. Make sure it's easy to navigate. It's clean. It's clear. Someone can land listen to your demo reel. Ooh, I like this, and they can go navigating and go find like all your portfolio and maybe an about me and things like that. And if you want an example of a really great site, joshadambell.com. I think he got hired about last year by a pretty big company, and he has a really simple. It doesn't have to be fancy, just really simple, 4 pages. Land on the reel. Um, yeah, don't go overboard. Just make sure it's well done. And I think people with websites have a slighter edge on people that just have a floating demo reel like YouTube or something like that. Um, Always be improving. Yeah, like you're not gonna just like make a reel and just like get hired right away. Or maybe you are, but who knows? You always want to be getting better. Just be recording, practicing your skills. You want to be experimenting, download free plugins, be curious, always be seeking knowledge, Google all kinds of things. There's tutorials, there's talks, there's articles. You have to do a lot of self-learning, a lot of improving. And I don't know how else to get this like link, but if you go to you find this tweet, find him, find this tweet, and there's a link here, which is a really long link, and this is like a massive, massive resource with like all kinds of links and resources and kinds of stuff like that. That is all about breaking into game audio. So like he took like everything that you can find, put it into a single place, and he updates it. So it's a really good resource. Um, and I thought I'd share some free stuff. These are all things that I literally use pretty much every single day. Not every day, but like every single, session or whatever. Valhalla, Freq Echo, Supermassive Space Modulator. They're free and they're high quality, amazing plugins for creating weird, unique, interesting source. Melda Production has a free bundle and they have amazing plugins, but their free bundle is really, really good. Transfer or Xfer makes a bunch of free plugins. I use OTT all the time. It's like a super hyper, like limiting compressor. It just like it just creates like crazy textures out of your sounds. SoundHack has a really interesting free bundle, and then Glitch Machines also misspelled that. Um, has a couple really interesting like granular and kind of like weird sci-fi plugins. So all of these are like high-end AAA. People use it all the time. This is not like one like you kind of use it and then trash it. This is like a super valuable. And then sounds, there's a game audio GDC bundle. If you type this into Google, game audio GDC bundle Sonys, uh, every year GDC releases like small snippets of like high tier libraries and gives them away for free. And it has become like a huge, massive library that of high end, super nice custom sounds. And I used the sounds a lot when I was starting out. I probably still use them occasionally. And then in terms of DAW, Reaper is my DAW of choice. Uh, it is cheap. I mean, it is free if you want to. I mean, it gives you a little box that says you can evaluate this DAW as long as you'd like. Then you can pay for it. If you make less than 20,000 a year, you can pay like 55 or 60. And then if you make more than 20K, you only pay like, I don't know, $200. I forget. Uh, don't hold me to that. But it's probably one of the cheapest and most powerful DAWs. Our entire sound design team at Bungie uses Reaper. Um, I know a lot of companies and a lot of people that use Reaper, and I believe that Reaper right now is slowly taking over the game audio world because it is so flexible and so powerful. Uh, I would say if you know a DAW really well, use that DAW. Don't think that you have to use a specific DAW. Uh, Pro Tools is good, although I personally don't like it too much. Uh, Nuendo is excellent. Some people use Ableton. Um, I don't think FL Studio it lends itself amazingly, but if it works for you, it works for you. Whatever you can make, whatever works for you is the best DAW, but Reaper is like the cheapest, most powerful, in my opinion. I always recommend it to students because it's an entry point for very little low cost that gives you a lot. Um, And yeah, I believe that covers everything. Here's my Twitter uh, in case you want to follow me. And again, people that I follow those people. You'll get a lot out of that. Just seeing like what people posting their videos, people posting what they're doing, asking questions, engage and be part of the community. And then yeah, I guess I'm a little early, but I figure I open it to have answer any questions that anyone might have.
Yeah, absolutely. We can totally move into the Q&A. I believe we had a question roll in a little bit earlier. I know that you mentioned, you spend like something like 20% of your time, just bug testing and fixing bugs.
Mhm.
And we had one person curious, can you describe uh, what a sound design bug is exactly, and what sorts of bugs do you have to deal with?
Yeah, of course. So bugs can be one of two things. Some bugs are as simple as, QA would like running around the game and they might like either like fire a gun and it makes no sound. Like it could be as simple as like they hand us the bug and we're like, oh, hey, we forgot to hook up audio on this gun. Like it's an old gun, we forgot about it. It's a bug, technically not really, and then we just hook up the sound, it's done, right? An actual like a real bug, like the one where you're like makes your head scratch. Uh, an example of that would be, let's say, you have a sword, and the sword has to make a sound depending on what material it's impacting, right? So if you hit grass, you want to hear grass. On top of the impact sound, you want to hear a little bit of like the grass sound. If you hit stone, you want to hear the sword and you want to hear the stone. If you hit glass, if you hit water, so on and so forth. Uh, and let's say for some reason, like no one knows why, but QA was playing around, or maybe I was playing around with the sword, and there's a shield, and we hit the shield, and it just splashed like water. And immediately I knew, like, okay, that's wrong. Like this shield should not make a splashing sound, which I know to be the sound that happens when you hit the sword on a lake, like an actual water. So I bug it, like, or someone hands me a bug, like, hey, the shield is making a water sound. And, it should be making like a little power shield, fuzzy, whatever sound, like a sci-fi, whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I go into the game, I go reproduce the bug, I hit the sword on the shield, makes a water splash. Okay, that's wrong. Then I start basically going into the engine and I go, okay, let's find where the shield is, and I pull up it depends on how each engine works, but I pulled up anything that's related to the shield, and I start looking down like, okay, how do I get hooked up? How do I get audio to play when the shield gets impacted? Oh, look, the shield has a category system that depending on what hits the shield, it should play X, Y, or Z sound. So let's check. Oh wait, when a bullet hits the shield, it's making a bullet slash shield sound. That's correct. And then I scroll down and I notice that there's no sound hooked for when a sword hits a shield. So for some reason that no one knows, the engine just didn't know what to do. So it might have picked water as a random like fallback. So I'm like, okay, now I know that someone forgot to hook up a sound to the shield hitting or the sword hitting the shield. Let me put a sound in here and maybe that will fix it. So I put a sound and I go, I import, get my build updated, hit the sword on the shield, it's now making the correct sound, bug is fixed. Uh, Obviously, that's completely made up. I just made it up completely, but to an extent, I don't want, it could be as simple as that, where like something didn't get plugged in and the engine went haywire and it picked a random sound. It could be like the engineer forgot to hook up the material system in the correct way. So you actually have to reach out to engineering and tell them, hey, you forgot to hook up the water to or the shield to play the correct sound. I'm gonna need a special hookup. Like you never know what you're gonna get. All you can do is reproduce the sound, investigate, and then come to a conclusion that I can fix this, or I need to have some help from engineering, from art, or someone like that. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think that totally covers all the bases.
Cool.
JC, if you'd like to take the next one.
Yeah. On Twitch, we have how do you browse an audio library for starting a sound? Like, wouldn't you mute or?
How do you browse a sound library? Say that again. Sorry.
How would you browse an audio library?
Okay.
Like, why would you grab a toilet sound when designing a gun? What's that process like?
Right. That is a question that I get a lot, and I get it from audio people, and I get it from like just non-audio people, from like fans of the game and things like that. And it's a really hard one to answer. I think that's part of what makes a good sound designer, which is basically creativity and exploration. Now, I will say, like the toilet example, it's a really extreme example. Um, there are two types of sounds, right? There's a sound where like I need a piece of metal hitting another piece of metal, and I just want to hear like what that is. So I browse my sound library, I look for metal, I type in metal, I type in impact, whatever, and I kind of just listen, and then I might get some pieces of metal and kind of compress them or whatnot, and just get like a nice chunky, and I got my metal sound. It's kind of like a one-to-one. What I see is what I hear. But then you got like the magic, the fantasy, the sci-fi, when it's like I got a purple beam that turns people into dust, and it's made by an alien race. So there's no rules at that point, right? You can't just search purple beam from the alien race. That's never going to give you anything. So that's where sound designers truly, like, they shine at their job. Your job as a sound designer is to figure out what purple beam from an alien planet sounds like. You it, you might have it in your head, and you'll be like, I'm kind of thinking of maybe like something kind of watery, warbly. You might have some ideas. You start writing down descriptors. I want it to sound, I want the low end to be really powerful. You might start like kind of just ideating, and then once you have like an idea of what you want to make, then you can either go to your sound library and start listening for textures and like kind of color, and maybe you hear like a elephant growl that kind of sounds really weird, and hey, maybe if I stretch it and I compress it and I like do something, maybe. And you start experimenting, and honestly, a lot of it is experimenting. A lot of it is, I'll grab the elephant sound and I'll run it through a granular plugin, and it sounds like crap, and I trash it, and I was like, that doesn't work. I'm gonna keep browsing, and sometimes I type like random keywords. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I browse. I might type like the most random things to see if like I get inspired. Sometimes I just browse. I pick a folder at random. Sometimes I just go into my synth and like start like just creating like and doing really crazy stuff. There's really not a single path. Every single person is different. Like, you can ask this question to anyone, they might give you a totally different answer. But at the end of the day, your job is to imagine what this sound that doesn't exist is going to sound like. So you have to be creative and like just make pretty much just literally magic happen, right? So the way to just kind of summarize and end this, I don't have any single way of browsing a sound library. I kind of just let my creative juices flow. I just kind of type a random keyword, browse to a folder that I think might work. Something, yeah, like I might create something, synthesize something. Like, there's no one answer, and a lot of trial and error, a lot of like trying. That's garbage, trash it, trying, garbage, trash it, and they just try over and over until you kind of get a little bit of something, and then you can start exploring. So, hope that answers your question.
Cool. Another question. What is the typical workflow for using Wise or another sound engine?
Okay. Yeah. So that can depend quite a bit, but usually it's gonna go something like, you have a X amount of assets. Let's say you have a weapon. Let's keep it in the weapon land, and the weapon's gonna have fires, reloads, scopes, things like that. So you want to focus on one at a time. So let's do the fires. So you wanna make your fires. Then you're gonna go into Wise, and there's all kinds of different ways to make a gun work or anything work. You will have to make your decision. In my case, we have a predetermined way of how we make our guns. So it could be you put them in a random container and you put like 10 gunshots in the random container, and then you tell it, hey, pick from this random container, never played the last three. You set some amount of logic, or maybe don't play this sound, like X amount of time. Like you have to like choose the way that you want it to play, and then you're gonna basically connect that uh, those sounds to an event, and then the event might have all kinds of logic. The event might have like whenever this event starts, play this sound and then stop this other sound. Like again, like there's a million ways that you can create something. So once you have your sound hooked up to your event in Wise, then you're going to take that event, and that event is basically going to dictate how the sound sounds. You're going to connect it to your engine, which every single engine will work differently. We have a proprietary engine, so it works differently from Unreal or Unity. But I'll basically find like the tag for the weapon that I'm working on, and I will basically just hook up the event to the tag, and there will be some logic that I have to tell the engine, like the engine will know like to play the tails when you're in a cave or when you're in like what have you. There's a lot of logic, and then I once that's all connected and done, you basically just update your build, get into the game, and see that it's sounding correct. It might be sounding terrible. It might be not making a sound at all. You have to go back to the drawing board and see where things went wrong. So honestly, like that question would require like a whole class to like kind of just, but that's kind of like a summary of it.
Yeah, I think that totally helps. Um, I'm kind of curious. Do you ever
hmm
find yourself, doing field recording or going through sound libraries when you don't actually have a particular effect in mind?
So what do you mean by a particular effect?
Like, do you just go out and record things without a purpose? Do you just
Yeah,
say,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is a great question, and that is also very dependent on the designer. But I think a lot of sound designers do it, and I definitely do it all the time. Anytime I hear an interesting sound out, I always walk away with my handheld recorder, or if I hear it at home, I will literally make time and like go record it and just like, this is a really cool sound, and I just put it in. I just name it, put metadata on it, put it in my sound library, put it in the corresponding folder, and it's now like stored and ready. And sometimes I will literally be like, I'm in the mood to record. I pull out my mic and I'll just grab like, you know, yeah, it could be like me banging on a door. I just want to get some like impacts of me banging on the door, or it could be my microwave door makes a really cool sound when I slam it. So I'll record that. It might be useful one day. Uh, I think strengthening your library as a sound designer all the time is extremely valuable. And there was a time like where for 3 months, I dedicated myself to recording one sound every single day and doing something with it. So I would either record, and if not record, I would take a sound I recorded and then just create something new out of it. And every single day, I wanted to have like a product, like something I made, or a recording. And then for like those 90 days, I ended up with like a really strong like mini library of sounds, and even some really cool like design sounds that I later could be like, oh, I remember I used that vacuum cleaner that made a really cool like power down sound, and I can use it for this power down like component in my game. So it is extremely valuable to always be recording. Like that's one of I should have put it in my presentation, like always be recording, because that is your most valuable asset as a sound designer, having a sound library that is personal to you, that no one else has ever heard or done anything with. And so you will be making by default really unique original sounds. So yeah,
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
yeah, of course. And sorry about the camera, it's so dark.
No, you're totally good. Um, we got another question rolling in.
Okay.
If if someone is wanting to get into sound design, how much would I have to spend on a mic to get something that's not really bad quality? You know, what's a good like entry level price point?
That's a good question. So the first answer that every sound designer should hear is the best microphone is the microphone that you have in your hand. And right now, the microphone that you probably have in your hand is your phone. And I linked him earlier, Marshall McGee, the YouTube channel that I showed earlier. Look, one of his videos, he the whole premise of the video was recreating, uh, I believe, was recreating the God of War axe like throw and retrieval, or maybe it was the Halo blaster, one of the two, which is equally impressive. And he said only using his iPhone mic. So he shows the whole process of him using his iPhone mic to record him like banging on a thing and like I don't know, like I forget what it is, but he recorded like 5 or 6 different sounds with his iPhone. Sure, he cleaned them up a little bit, post production, and he comes up with a pretty solid result. So you can do a lot with very little. Now, that's not to say that like you have your iPhone and now you can just go be a professional sound designer easy. Like it's definitely more nuanced than that for sure. But don't underestimate. And even like the most professional people will always say, oh yeah, sure, I have $3,000 worth of microphones, but I didn't have them with me when the storm hit and there was huge lightning striking, and they were completely useless, right? So uh, I got this guy when I was just starting out. This is hard to see, but it's called a Sony PCM M10, and it's a stereo Omni um, recorder. It's a handheld recorder. It's literally smaller than a phone. Put it in your pocket, your back pocket. It records at high quality, 96K, 24-bit, really great. I mean, and you can even plug like little microphones. Uh, but uh, I've recorded so many sounds with this thing, and I've used it for ambiances. I've used it for impacts, animals, uh, just like anything you can imagine. And I think this is anywhere from 200 to 250, but I think they're discontinued, so they might be more expensive, even used. But like, there's a lot of examples of like little handheld recorders that are definitely a way of a step up that your phone microphone, and you can do a lot with these. Um, so I would say like the number one step is try to find a handheld recorder, and uh, and then you can get quite a lot. And then as you get more money, you can kind of start investing on actual like shotgun microphones or uh, all kinds of different microphones. Like it is so overwhelming that I only have one, right? You can't see it, but I have one actual expensive microphone that I own. It's like a Sennheiser 8060. All of my other microphones are like cheap, kind of like contact microphone and a cheap, Omni, and then I got my handheld. I literally only own one expensive microphone because I also get really overwhelmed. There's so many choices, and there's shotguns, and there's like Omni, and there's you want to get an MS set up, and there's like so much, like it can get really overwhelming. So try to focus on just starting with the handheld and then kind of slowly take it from there. If you ever need advice on like buying like a shotgun, or you want to buy an whatever, uh, message me on Twitter, or like just tweet me on Twitter, and I will help you. But yeah, start with a handheld, and if you don't have one, like start with the phone. Like right away, you can get a lot done. Just get recording is the most important thing.
Cool.
Any other questions?
What is the state of uh, the what's the state of the games industry right now for sound designers? Like with all the remote,
Oh, the remote.
yeah.
Yeah, the remote stuff. That's an interesting one, and that's something that's it's moving along right now. every company's kind of like doing it a little, like taking it a little differently. I'm pretty sure pretty much every AAA company moved to remote pretty fast. Everyone, at least in our audio team, everyone in our audio team, basically, we've been working on. We have like Bungie gives us headphones, like really nice headphones, and we've been working on headphones and like our home setups of speakers and what have you. Excuse me. And it's been really tough because yeah, like your home can be noisy. You might have kids. I have a dog. He can just start barking randomly. Uh, it's not like a it's not a studio room and it's not treated correctly. And there's a lot of factors and it is definitely way different than at Bungie. We have like dedicated suites with like like actual legit rooms. So it's really hard. It's been really hard to adapt, but uh, I think every sound designer has been really scrappy and just like the phone example, you can record on a phone and get things done. Like we've been just getting it done using like headphones, referencing, using plugins that let us see what the spectrum is saying, so we can see like what our low end is doing. We have a couple people that have like really nice setups. We might have them run like tests on certain sounds or sequences to make sure like they have subwoofers and treated rooms and make sure it's all playing well. So there's been a lot of like improvising and like just trying to do the best we can. And it probably is not like the same quality as working at the studio and like high end production. But yeah, we've been doing the best we can, and I think we've been doing pretty good.
Okay, cool. That's really good to know.
Yeah,
I've got a question for you.
sure.
Since you are, working in the AAA space,
Yeah,
what's it like for you to see your work reach such a wide audience?
yeah. That's interesting because when I started at Bungie, uh, I had like four or 500 followers, and then uh, within like months, like people find out like there's so many people that love Destiny, and I've gone up to like 3,000 something followers. It's really hard to keep up, and but people are really good, and I love to share. Excuse me. I love to share, and I love to share process, and I love to share what I'm doing and what I've been working on, things like that. And it's been really cool. It's been really exciting because people love the game, but people really love sound for some reason. Like even the angriest of gamers, just when they get to see like their favorite weapon was made using like a garbage can or like a toilet or random things like that. That stuff is really exciting to people. So it's been really cool. I've really been enjoying it, and people are always really excited of like all the stuff that I've been doing. I enjoy it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's really awesome to hear. Um, we got another question in.
sure.
Do AAA companies tend to outsource work, or is there usually an audio team at any given studio?
AAA companies all have audio teams. I don't know of any AAA company that does not have an audio team. So uh, yeah, they all have audio teams, and most AAA companies have so much work that they still use outsourcing because there's always just way too much work. So uh, all the core work will be done by the audio team, and anything that just falls out of schedule as overflow or anything that we need help with, we yeah pretty sure like every AAA company has like a kind of like a list of their preferred people, contractors or outsourcing companies that we rely on to get overflow work on. But yeah, it all starts with an audio team. Every single AAA company probably.
Cool. Another question.
Mhm.
Do audio designers usually work project to project, or is it full time with one company?
I'm sorry. What's the start of the question?
Uh, do audio designers work project to project,
Oh,
or
gotcha.
full time with one company?
Well, what do you mean by audio designers? Because there's people there's in-house like me. I worked at Bungie, right? I worked in-house at Bungie. Um, so all we have is Destiny, so we work on Destiny. Uh, so yeah, I just work on Destiny purely. But you know, uh, when I was a freelancer, like or when I was working as a freelancer for Team Audio, for example, I don't know if this is in the same vein of your question, but like, yeah, uh, they're an outsourcing company that works for like 10 to 12 companies, like they ebb and flow over the year. So they basically had me constantly jumping, like, hey, we need help with some weapons on this game, and hey, we need help with UI for this other game, or like we need some assistance with some creatures. So I'm always jumping from project to project. And if you're a freelancer, like with that, like just a straight up freelancer, just looking for your own work, you're most likely probably will be needing to find, like, unless it's a really big project you can dedicate yourself to, you'll probably be like jumping around project to project. So it depends if you're a freelancer, and if you're in-house inside with a company. Some companies, I don't know, Ubisoft or Blizzard, they have multiple projects. Pretty sure they each project has a dedicated audio team, and if they're gonna put you on another team, it's gonna be like a big transition process. But yeah, when it comes to in-house, you're usually pretty dedicated to a single project.
Okay, that's really cool. It looks like we've just about caught up with our chat for Q&A.
Okay,
So unless something else rolls in pretty soon, we can probably start wrapping it up. I can leave you with at least one more question really quick.
sure.
I'm kind of curious, what has been your favorite project in your career so
I mean, Destiny.
far?
I mean, unless you mean more specific, but just in the grand scale of things, it's gotta be Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is perfectly fine. I mean, that answers it. So
Yeah,
um, that's good to know. Cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I guess we can leave a couple more seconds for the chat to get any last minute questions in if anything comes to mind.
Sure.
Um, but I guess in the meantime, we can go ahead and start wrapping things up. Uh, we really appreciate you, coming out and sharing your insights with us. I think it's really hard to know sometimes, how to break in, and so it's
Yep.
it's been really great hearing about that.
Oh well, I'm
Um,
glad it was useful. I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions roll in. So
Okay,
with that said, I think we can go ahead and call it a night.
cool.
So yeah, again, you can reach Juan on Twitter, or how else can they get in contact with you?
Pretty active on Twitter. You'll find me there for sure.
Okay, well, sounds great. So yeah, he's on Twitter. If you have any other questions, guys, you can throw them in the SGDA Discord, and we can pass them along.
Yeah,
But yeah,
for
thank you
sure.
so much for sharing your story with us, Juan.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
everyone in chat, have a fantastic night.
yeah. I'll stay along in Discord if you want more if you have more questions. I'll be around the channels and stuff like that.
Sure.
And thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.